Hello and welcome to Spotlight by Amazing Workplaces. Spotlight puts into focus established names in the corporate as well as the business world, both leaders as well as entrepreneurs, to engage with them in conversations about how they impact their organizations, their people, as well as the community through their endeavors. Today's Spotlight discussion focuses on Luiza Avetisyan, co-founder of HireBee, a deep tech startup reinventing talent acquisition in a post-COVID world. Luiza is an entrepreneur with strong corporate background and 15 plus years of extensive experience in world-class organizations. She has an extensive domain expertise in strategic marketing, customer development, analytics, as well as product management. Luiza is a proud mom of three wonderful boys. She's a TEDx speaker, a university lecturer, and a woman in love with life. Luiza has joined us today from Armenia to talk to us about why employer branding is a must for startups and ways in which it can be achieved. This is going to be an important discussion because, according to a study, 23% of startups fail due to not having the right team. A highly motivated and skilled team is the key to success. It's nearly impossible to overstate the importance of having the right employees working for your startup. Growing a business is for sure a team effort. But how can you create a buzz around your startup, attract motivated talent, and keep your existing workforce to stay with your company and stay happy? There is only one answer to this question: employer branding. And Luiza is going to share with us the why and how of building a great employer brand for startups. So, welcome, Luiza, to Spotlight. It's a pleasure to have you join us today. How are you doing, Luiza?
Hi, Ekta. I'm doing great, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here, to be a guest at Spotlight by Amazing Workplaces. And I'm very happy to have a chance to share my views and my experience with startup employer branding, because I'm a startupper myself, and I know firsthand how important it is. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Luiza. And I'm sure, there's a lot of buzz, around employer branding these days. And wherever we see, people are talking about how to retain talent. In fact, when we go through the news headlines, a lot of organizations, especially IT organizations, are trying to woo talent, at various levels. And they are trying different ways, in which they can retain the existing talent that they have. That is also an important aspect that people are talking about. So I'm surely looking forward to our discussion today, and I'm really, positive that the discussion that we have today will help a lot of people, especially our viewers who watch this episode of ours, to understand how to build a great employer brand for their organization, especially startup organization.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Luisa, like I just mentioned, the discussions around employer branding have gained a lot of impetus during the current scenario. With organizations, becoming cognizant of individual employee needs and recognizing that different people function differently. In this current scenario, adjusting working practices to offer the needed flexibility is becoming a key contributor in helping organizations become an employer of choice. Considering this aspect, what do you feel is the current scenario of employer branding in organizations?
Okay, so in a nutshell, employer brand is the representation of company's internal values and employee value proposition. So the goal here is to introduce the candidate to companies' core values and highlight why people should work for the given company. So you precisely noted, Ekta, that flexibility is becoming a non-negotiable tool. COVID urged companies across the globe to reassess their priorities. The post-COVID workplace is now all about flexibility to choose where to work from, care towards employees, care towards peers. So it has changed drastically. So on top of all that, dealing with employee well-being and mental health is no longer a luxury. It has rather become a business as usual. So before the pandemic, a lot of talent acquisition managers and businesses in general would ask themselves, could we hire someone we have never met before, and actually end up never meeting that person? And the answer would most likely be no, unless this was a freelance role or a contract-based position. So what happened during the pandemic is that companies started to hire people without having ever to meet with them. And candidates who were invited for an online interview would ask for a team photo, for a team building video, just to understand how it was like to work for a given company, how the office looked like before. So they want to get the feeling about the space. So the thing is that many companies were not ready for this. So they didn't have all this information on their hand just to share with potential companies. So speaking about the employer brand, sharing with the public and promoting employer brand activities for actively hiring companies became a non-negotiable must. And because candidates would go to search internet first before even applying for the position, or even more before accepting the interview offer, the new reality became that talent acquisition managers and the businesses in general couldn't afford staying without sharing this all information online. So they started to understand why it is important to promote the brand. And we work with many companies, hundreds and thousands of companies, who are now actively hiring for positions that would deal with telling the company's story and promoting the company's employer brand. So in a nutshell, for actively hiring companies, employer branding goes shoulder to shoulder with other recruitment activities. For passively hiring companies, employer branding is a long-term investment, and in a way, a good retention tool.
So, Luiza, from what you just told me right now, we understand that during the current times, organizations have become more aware about employer branding. And, especially like earlier, there were certain things which were taken for granted. Now those things are not taken for granted. For example, flexibility. Organizations know that if they are not flexible enough, it would be very difficult for them to retain talent. And so I would like to understand now from you, especially because, I have come across a lot of, organizations, primarily startups, through my personal network. And most of them are actually struggling to hire the right quality of talent. So tell me, Luiza, why do you feel that small businesses and startups face this problem? And in this scenario, how important is the role of building a unique employer brand for one's organization?
Thank you for the question, Ekta. So we work with thousands of companies, and majority of them have less than 500 team members, which is considered a small business, and many of them are startups. So in fact, the small business segment is the largest worldwide. Like almost 95% of all businesses worldwide are small businesses. So we understand how important it is to support this segment and for this segment to sustain and grow. But what we literally witnessed is a major paradigm shift overnight. When the companies switched from work from home, faced a major revenue surge, or had to decrease overhead because of revenue decrease. And last thing on their agenda was to promote their employer brand at that moment. However, things have changed for the past 18 months. What remained unchanged, though, is the struggle to hire the right talent and the best talent. And here is why this struggle will be around for a while. So the first thing is that the freelancing is now booming. Candidates can easily find a better paying job somewhere else on the globe and compared to what they can get locally. So local SMBs, small businesses and startups struggle to hire the right talent, the best talent, because they can freelance for the US or the European market. A recent study of ours showed that young people aged from 20 to 35 would rather work for an established big company rather than a startup or a small company. Why? Because of job security. So this is another aspect. And also, big companies are now gradually getting back to normal with their volumes of revenues recovering and increasing. And they play really hard to get the best talent. They have this surge and they need to close the vacancies. And where they take this talent? From small and medium companies. So this is another challenge and struggle that small and mid-sized businesses have. So here are some thoughts with the given scenario. Here are some thoughts on how and why the employer brand and promoting the employer brand for small companies and startups is very important. So the first one is that now the workplaces, as I said, are remote and global. We see lots of companies like with 50 employees or 100 employees, which are really the small ones, that do not have the office anymore. So they hire different people in different ends of the world. And here they really need to have a strong digital presence to attract people to tell their story. The second thing, it's a very interesting observation, is that many small businesses and startups transitioned from being just local to offering their services globally. And with this context, they start to have a need for international hiring. If we want to sell in the US, we need to hire people from the US. If we want to sell to Australia, we need to hire people from Australia. Again, how to tell your story, how to make yourself, your company visible, it's through the employer brand. And the last one is, if we think of employer brand as a retention tool, it is really a huge one. And from all the activities that our company helped our customers and clients to promote their employer brand, the first people to engage and to share this content and these videos, etc., were companies' employees. So it is an important aspect for small and medium businesses and startups to promote their employer brand, because they have huge struggle with retention of talent as well. So 3 things why employer brand is important and how, if done right, it can really help the company to grow, scale, and even go global and go international. I think this is it, Ekta.
Thank you, Luiza. As organizations, especially startups, need to really look into this seriously, because startups need, good talent to grow and to make a mark for themselves. And if they would struggle with the good, hiring good talent, it would definitely be it poses a serious problem for them. So thank you for sharing this. And now, since we're discussing about startups, and we have just outlined why startups are facing this problem in getting the right kind of talent and retaining it for a longer period of time, I would like to ask you, is building an employer branding a difficult task? And what are some of the things startups can do to build a unique employer brand? And how can these efforts be sustained over a longer period of time? So, in the beginning of the discussion, you've already mentioned that you yourself are a startup. And I'm sure because you're a startup, you yourself know the way out. You understand, what are the things that need to be done to ensure that you get the best talent for yourself. So, I would like to understand from you how this can be done.
Okay, Ekta, thank you. So I'll put it this way. I'll share with my experience and views on how to promote employer brand and the level of difficulty. And then I'll share our experience if you don't mind. So if it's difficult or not, I would say that with the right approach, with clearly defined goals and 100% commitment to to build and promote employer brand, it's not difficult. So in terms of startups, two main factors play a huge role in forming the employer brand. The first one are the co-founders and the C-level employees or managers. These are like CTO, Chief Operating Officer, or Chief HR Officer. So the first few employees and co-founders are the carriers of these values, and they set the pace and that they set the environment. To scale, for instance, tech startups need strong engineers and tech people, right? So the best way to attract this high demand talent is to show with whom they're going to work with. That suppose we have someone, a graduate of MIT with great experience with startups and technology, engineers would like to work with this person. So the culture in startups are formed by the founders, and employer brand is in a way of showcasing this company culture. If we look at the second aspect, it's the product. So it plays a huge role on the employer brand formation, especially the early days when the startup doesn't have many employees, they can't make referrals, they are not that active, etc., etc. The product plays a really, really big role. So if done right, this can win a great game. But what happens is that very often there are great founders with great background, exits, etc. And there is this great product that will be the future Google or Facebook or SpaceX, but companies, startups fail to tell the story. So employer brand is all about telling the story and building it on these two main pillars. So now I want to share with some practical and step-by-step guide on how startup founders, startups can build their employer brand. So the first one is to define the company's core values, put them together in a written form, and communicate it with a team. The best practice is to involve the team in creating these values, because it's not possible just to sit in the room, create the values, and then go and tell that, these are our values, okay? Now that we have our values, we need to communicate this to our team members. So the next step is to communicate this with the team, to have their buy-in, to make sure that they also live it, they also feel it. Okay. Now that we were done with this communication as well, we need to clearly define our goals. What do we want to achieve? Do we want MIT and Stanford graduates as our engineers to join us? Do we want to hire best international salespeople all over the world? Do we already have a great team and want to showcase how cool we are and use employer branding as a retention tool? So it's very important to redefine and to define our goals. Now we have our core values, we have defined our goals. What we need to do, we need some marketing support, or we need some marketing knowledge to go there and to share with the world who we are, what we want, and where we go. Sometimes founders who do not have the level of marketing knowledge they need to possess, they go and ask for some help. And it is absolutely fine. Now, I will share with some channels that can be used to promote employer brand. So here are several channels that can be used to promote employer brand. The first one are the social media accounts. No one can underestimate the power of social media. LinkedIn is a great platform where company can tell their story, where startups can promote themselves. And one thing here is that, again, if we go back to the fact that founders are forming the employer brand, it's important for the founders to be active as well. In fact, the study shows that founders' personal brand directly impacts and affects the startup's employer brand as well. We have some cases when the company will have two pages, one for their users and customers, the other one for their potential employees, candidates, and their existing employees. Another one is the career website. It's very important for startups to maintain a very nice and structured career site that could tell their story. Glassdoor is a great platform to be as well because candidates search there. Some of our customers and clients we work with, they have YouTube channels where their employees share some interesting insights, share some interesting content, and with this, they help to promote employer brand. Medium channel is a great way as well to share and to help others to learn as well. Last but not least, online and offline events are also a great tool. Now that we are recovering back, more and more offline events are taking place. So candidates really love to see the brand there just offline as well. Okay, so company startups can either sponsor the event or speak as speakers, like share as speakers. Now that I want to also share with some of the steps that we take and that we do here to promote our startup's employer brand. So the first one is, it is really tightly tied up with the founders' personal brands and founders' brands as well, because many people know us, know the startup through our brands. The second one is we're really active on social media. We share some stories, we share some videos with team get-togethers. For example, during Employee Appreciation Day, we gathered all our employees from all over the world. We had like 17 countries our employees came from, and we set appreciation to our team. Another thing is that we are very active in events. Previously, it was offline events, now online events. Our founders are very often invited to speak at different events. And I would say that it not only helps to promote the company to potential customers, it also helps to promote the company to potential candidates. So I think these are several things that we use to promote our employer brand, and we put a huge accent on our employees. So just to sum up, in our journey of building our startup's employer brand, we should know that this is a long-term effort. We do not get an instant success, and only with clear commitment to making our company stand out in the crowd, achieving our goals, and staying true to our values will help us to build a really strong and long-term brand.
Okay. Thank you, Luiza. That, in fact, very nicely you have explained how startups should actually build their employer brand. So I'll just like you to add one thing here. I see a lot of startups, getting overwhelmed how to build their employer brand. What's your piece of advice basically for people who are overwhelmed? How should they go about it?
Well, the first thing is that they need to admit and acknowledge that as they build their product brand or their company brand, the same effort should go to build the employer brand. So it's not something that is very difficult. It's not. It just they do build their brand, right? They do promote their product. They make sure that their clients and users know about the product. The same thing applies to employer brand as well. And overwhelming would not help here. If they acknowledge and understand that these two things are not very much different, then the overwhelming will go down. So if they treat promoting their employer brand like their marketing or sales team would promote their company brand, they will feel that there are lots of channels, lots of possibilities, and it's not really that hard. I think this is the answer and my advice to them.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Luiza. I think this was a wonderful discussion that we had today. A lot of useful and important insights that one can take from this discussion. Thank you so much for being a part of Spotlight and sharing your views and ideas with us. Thank you so much, Luiza.
Thank you, Ekta. It was my pleasure. I always seek ways to share my experience. If I can help in any way, I'm always ready. And the Spotlight is a great format, a great platform for professionals to share their views. I really enjoyed this experience. Thank you very much for the time and effort that you put to actually share this information with your audience and really help them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luiza. Pleasure having you on Spotlight.